Welcome to the Sunset Stories channel. Don't forget to subscribe and share your favorite stories with your friends. Thanks for your support and enjoy watching. You won't believe what went down at the company party. In this jaw-dropping video, I, David Anderson, reveal how I uncovered my wife's shocking betrayal, fought back with fierce resolve, and exposed a corrupt system. From covert messages to an explosive legal showdown. Here's the real story of deception, revenge, and cold, hard justice. Prepare for the shocking details that will leave you speechless. My name is David, and this is my confession, a story of shattered trust and unrelenting vengeance. It all began one sweltering summer evening, when the thick heat seemed to foreshadow drastic change, and the hallways of North Star Industries buzzed about the upcoming company party. In this corporation, success was measured not only by your business metrics, but also by your ability to win the confidence of both colleagues and management. Until recently, I believed I knew my wife, Emma, better than anyone else. We had been married for nearly 10 years, and it felt like our life was built on a solid foundation of mutual understanding and support. But in those last few days, something fell off. Rumors about the party, potential promotions, and big career moves swirled around us. Emma had just been promoted. Her coworkers praised it as well-earned thanks to her persistence and professionalism. Naturally, I was happy for her, but deep down, I couldn't shake a growing unease, as though something ominous was creeping into my life. In our evening talks, when we discussed our future plans, I noticed a fleeting uncertainty in her expression, something she never spoke about. On the run-up to the event, the office buzzed even more. Invites were distributed, outfits were discussed, and coffee breaks turned into sessions of hushed gossip. I tried to keep my composure, though a storm brewed inside me. On the day of the party, as usual, I helped Emma get ready. Her outfit was elegant and modern, a tailored silhouette paired with subtle, flirtatious accents that highlighted her femininity. She looked stunning, and I recalled how I had once trusted her wholeheartedly, convinced that our love was unbreakable. Yet I could still spot a flicker of doubt in her eyes. On our drive downtown to the upscale hotel hosting the celebration, I watched the streets come alive in the twilight. The glow of storefronts, the hum of traffic, and the laughter of pedestrians fused into a festive backdrop. Beneath that glimmer, however, I sensed a lurking tension. Emma stayed quiet, staring at the passing lights, while I struggled to find words to soothe her, receiving only a faint, pained smile in return. Stepping into the hotel's opulent lobby, I couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between its luxurious exterior and the turmoil churning inside me. The place overflowed with colleagues, people used to glitz and success, decked out in impeccable suits and polished accessories, eager for new triumphs. But through all the glamour, I sensed hidden intrigues and secret power plays. Emma was at the center of attention, congratulated by colleagues, whether sincerely or with forced cheer, and recognized by top management as an example for others. Meanwhile, I felt like an outsider at my own celebration, consumed by suspicion. Every look, every smile around me seemed to hint at some reality I had yet to discover. Shortly before the banquet began, I slipped off to a quiet corner of the lobby to gather my thoughts. I tried to make sense of what felt so wrong, why it seemed like Emma was concealing something. Suddenly, my longtime friend and co-worker, Ryan, came over. He had a knack for offering support at the right moments. "David, you seem tense," he remarked, sitting beside me. I forced a smile, unable to reveal how deeply I was unraveling. "Just a feeling," I replied, too wary to speak the whole truth. Ryan only nodded, and in his eyes I saw a flicker of understanding, the very thing I desperately needed. Laughter and animated chatter filled the hotel corridors, and I made my way back to Emma. We walked together, but the chasm between us seemed wider than ever. I tried to glean her feelings from her subtle facial expressions, only to see the professional mask she wore so well. A moment on the terrace gave me a fleeting spark of hope. In the shimmer of the city lights reflected in my champagne, I dared to believe, however briefly, that everything could be salvaged. But deep down, I knew that behind the glitzy facade of this corporate event lurked darkness that was about to reveal itself. That very night, the first warning signs of catastrophe emerged. I had no idea that I was about to endure not just another corporate party, but revelations powerful enough to dismantle my entire world. While everyone else mingled and laughed, I watched Emma's every move, desperately looking for a hint of betrayal. Doubt and fear crystallized into a cold certainty that soon dictated my every action. As the clock in the hotel lobby ticked toward the start of the banquet, my heart raced and my thoughts whirled. Something was dreadfully wrong, and I sensed that tonight would mark a defining moment in my life. Even though everything once seemed perfect, a storm was gathering, one that would obliterate our past, present, and future. The company party continued in its usual splendor. Laughter, friendly chatter, and the sincere warmth of colleagues celebrating North Star Industries' success. But hidden beneath the festive surface was a mounting sense of dread. Before I could fully join the celebrations, I retreated to a dimly lit corner of the hall, an oasis away from the city clamor and the party's excitement. There, in the half-darkness, Peter Harrison, the company's vice president, known for his self-assured demeanor, approached me unexpectedly. His gaze was as cold as his stride was confident, as though he already knew the pain he was about to inflict. "David, can we speak privately?" he asked, a mocking smile on his lips. Despite a gnawing sense of danger, I followed him to an isolated spot, away from the crowd. There, Harrison sat down across from me at a small table and, as if unveiling a grim secret, took out his phone. My heart leapt into my throat when he locked eyes with me and said, "David, would you like to know how your Emma got her promotion?" Before I could blink, he hit play. On the small screen, an intimate video began to play, so explicit it felt like a cold blade in my chest. Emma was there, surrendering herself fully to forbidden passion. Not only was Harrison in the frame, but two other men lurked in the dimly lit footage, their faces partially obscured. Only the two of us, the betrayer and the betrayed, witnessed this disturbing reality. There were no public displays, no dramatic announcements. It was a private blow exposing my wife's infidelity in raw detail. In the silence, Harrison's calm but pointed voice resumed. "You see now, David? This is how she was so eager to advance. And remember, she's ours now. There's nothing you can do." Those words, spoken quietly yet coated in venomous smugness, cut to my core. I sat there, reeling in agony and fury, struggling to comprehend that the woman I loved had betrayed me so completely. Each second of that video drove the truth deeper into my consciousness. Harrison's sneer only grew when he saw my shock. There was no sign of regret in his expression, only a cold glee in possessing such damning knowledge. In that solitary moment, confronted by painful betrayal, a dark storm of emotion took root. Every second of his revelation fueled my determination to fight back, to ensure each wrongdoer would answer for this. After Harrison left me in the corridor, crushed by the shocking evidence of Emma's treachery, an uncontrollable rage began to boil inside me. Unable to contain it, I stormed away from that secluded spot. The only thing echoing in my head was the call for vengeance. I had to fight for the truth. It wasn't long before instinct guided me to the very place I expected Harrison to reappear. In a dim service corridor, I found him. Surprise briefly flickered in his eyes. He clearly hadn't foreseen such an immediate response. Words were unnecessary. I grabbed him by the lapels and, wild with fury, launched at him. Our fists collided in an explosion of anger, reverberating through the passage. Every punch I landed bore the force of my broken trust and anguish. Harrison tried to fight back, but his defense faltered under my relentless onslaught. Blow by blow, his strength gave way, and he stumbled to the cold tiles. I stopped, breathing heavily, staring at his expression twisted in shock and fear, a reflection of the brutal justice I sought. This was just the beginning, the first act of my retaliation. Voices rose around us, footsteps approached, but I couldn't hear anything beyond the thunder of my own heartbeat. In that moment, I vowed that betrayal would not go unpunished. Everyone involved would pay dearly. I left that grim corridor and returned home, only to face yet another ordeal. The place that had once been warm and inviting now felt cold and unfamiliar, a mirror of my desolate spirit. Emma was seated in the living room, her eyes brimming with dread and misery. Her presence was a piercing reminder that what we had built together lay in shambles. I approached her, every step heavy with the bitter realization of our impending collapse. "Emma," I said, my voice quivering with pent-up emotion, How could you betray me like this?" She lifted her gaze, her expression full of confusion and guilt. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "David, please, let me explain." She tried to justify herself, portraying the affair as if she had been cornered by desperate circumstances, as though she'd had no alternative. But I could no longer believe such feeble excuses. "You call this just an unfortunate slip?" I asked through clenched teeth. "You destroyed everything we had." Emma tried to answer, her voice trembling as she insisted she felt underappreciated and wanted more from life. But her words were no match for the raging storm within me. Outrage, betrayal, and sorrow all converged in a torrent of emotion. "A slip," I shouted, my voice trembling with despair. "That's all you can say? You've obliterated our life." Overcome by fury, I lost control. My hand struck her cheek with a sharp crack, and time seemed to freeze. Emma recoiled, her eyes reflecting shock and terror. The fury coursing through me was unstoppable, each second tearing down any hope of redemption. Her whispers of remorse drowned in the darkness I was unleashing. When I finally stopped, the silence was suffocating. I saw Emma trembling, fear and regret etched in her face. I realized with horror that my own action had demolished the last chance of salvaging what we once had. "David, I never wanted this. I never meant it to go so far," she murmured, her voice trembling. But her words could not penetrate the armor of betrayal and anger encasing my heart. I knew I had destroyed all possibility of reconciliation. In that moment, it became clear that our past, once alive with love and laughter, was lost forever. Our home, once a place of warmth, had become the final battleground where we destroyed each other's last illusions. That night signaled the start of the end, a time when love and trust were replaced by hatred and ruin. I stood among the wreckage of our shattered life, fully aware that the path we had chosen led only into the darkness, with no victors and no salvation. After that harrowing night of endless pain, I found myself alone, consumed by rage and grief. Alone in our once cozy living room, now a cold, empty space. I realized it was time to learn the full truth behind Emma's betrayal. Sitting in the dim light, I forced myself to pick up her phone, left lying on the table. My hand shook with indecision, but the torment of deception spurred me on. I had to see it all. At first, I saw the usual work messages and congratulations on her promotion. But I soon noticed a specific chat titled Peter H. My heart pounded with every new line I read. "Emma, I can't stand being away from you. You make me feel alive. Everything else is empty without you." These words cut me like shards of glass. It got even worse. I found countless messages detailing how Emma and Harrison arranged secret liaisons, plotted for future opportunities, and debated how to keep their affair concealed. This wasn't a fleeting lapse. It was a calculated operation ensuring Emma's rapid climb within the company. In one conversation, Emma wrote, David will never understand how much I need to be with you. With him, it's so unpredictable. With you, I feel that freedom and passion I've always craved. The messages were accompanied by photos, Emma posing in expensive settings, entwined with Harrison and two other men identified as Jack and Brandon. One video, shot in Harrison's private office, had chilling words in the background. Emma, you laughed when you said David would never figure this out. We'll prove it, and leave him with nothing. Each discovery tore me further apart. The love I had believed so fervently in was nothing but a cold transaction. Alongside the anguish, my resolve to expose the full scope of her treachery and demand retribution grew stronger. I saved every piece of evidence, messages, photos, videos, onto a secure external drive. I needed not only to understand what had happened, but to show the world how utterly my life had been destroyed by betrayal. Weeks of sleepless nights and a relentless cycle of anguish finally convinced me I could not shoulder this fight alone. The evidence, those damning messages, photographs, and videos, called for professional legal expertise. I contacted Michael Carter, a prominent attorney known for his tenacious approach and success in complex cases, especially those involving personal relationships and corporate wrongdoing. We arranged to meet at his office in a sleek downtown high-rise. When I stepped into the modern reception area, Carter met me with a steady, knowing look, almost as if he already sensed the depth of my despair. "David," he said, offering his hand, "please, tell me everything." Seated before his imposing desk, I laid out the whole tragic story, piece by piece. I showed him screenshots, video clips, and photographs. Every component of Emma's betrayal and Harrison's corrupt scheme. Carter studied each detail closely. Though he remained reserved, determination glinted in his eyes. "This case stands a strong chance," he concluded after reviewing the evidence. "But be prepared for a grueling process, requiring not just financial resources, but a steely resolve. We'll file suit against Emma and Harrison and hold everyone involved accountable." The finality of his words hit me like a wave of icy water. Together, we created a plan of attack, documenting every transgression, detailing precisely how their conspiracy had wrecked my life, and exposing the severe violations of both corporate policy and the law. Over the ensuing days, Carter and I worked ceaselessly. We compiled a formal complaint that outlined not just the emotional and physical harm I had suffered, but also the financial damage caused by their actions. Every crucial piece of evidence was systematically organized and prepared for the courtroom. Before long, the suit became public. Coworkers and business partners whispered about the brewing scandal that threatened to topple the pillars of North Star Industries' leadership. The media latched onto the story, filling public discourse with Emma's deceit and Harrison's corrupt maneuvers. However, for me, this wasn't a bid for attention. It was the first step toward vindication. The trial date arrived a few weeks later. I sat in court, tension coiling in my chest, mentally replaying the evidence we would soon present. Carter argued our case methodically, revealing incriminating message after message, pinpointing every instance where a promotion was bought, not earned. The defense tried to dismiss events as coincidences or misunderstandings, but Carter countered with precision and damning proof. Witnesses confirmed that Emma and Harrison plotted together, and objective evidence highlighted the sham behind her promotion. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged. Day by day, we peeled back more layers, revealing blatant policy violations and an unconscionable abuse of power at the heart of North Star Industries. Carter's documents left little doubt. Emma's promotion was fraudulent, obtained through her affair and secret negotiations. It violated not only corporate policy, but the very notion of professional integrity. When the judge issued an interim ruling, I finally felt a glimmer of hope. Temporary measures were put in place, suspending the accused from their positions while the trial proceeded. This move assured me that what had been done to me would not be ignored. Watching the proceedings with unwavering resolve, I noted how each fact, each photograph, text, and testimony brought me closer to justice. This wasn't just about compensation for personal betrayal. It was also about exposing the toxic underbelly of an institution. Every exhibit Carter presented hammered home that deception, however carefully orchestrated, would eventually be held to account. By the end of the trial, the truth was undeniable. The judge ruled in our favor. Not only were Emma and Harrison found liable, but the scandal forced North Star Industries to reform its internal policies. Those who once deemed themselves above all consequences now faced serious legal repercussions. The verdict, along with the public's condemnation, signaled the beginning of a new dawn, one grounded in transparency and fairness. Though the court battle had left deep scars, I recognized it as a path to redemption through truth. The law had become my ally, allowing me to reclaim my dignity and prove that injustice and duplicity could be conquered. Weeks trickled by following the sensational court showdown, but our once shared home remained eerily silent, its walls now resonating with the echoes of loss. In that somber atmosphere, Emma decided it was time to talk. One gloomy evening, where even streetlights felt superfluous and the weight of the past hung over every corner, she knocked softly on the door. I was in the living room, staring into the void, when her presence drew me to answer. There she stood, pale and exhausted, eyes pleading with regret and despair, yet overshadowed by resignation. Cautiously, she stepped inside, as if any movement might topple what little remained between us. "David," she began with a trembling voice, "please, hear me out. I know I ruined everything, but I beg you listen." Her tone shook with genuine fear that I might refuse. In that moment, I searched her face for a glimpse of the woman I once adored, but saw only the reflection of my own disappointment. Emma tried to justify herself again, claiming insurmountable pressures and a longing for recognition had forced her down this path. "Your words mean nothing now," I replied coldly, each syllable hitting her like a blow. "You've destroyed what we built together." She tried to protest, her voice trembling with despair. "David, I thought it would help me. I felt overlooked, like I deserved more. I swear it was just a lapse in judgment. I tried to fix it." Her explanations rang hollow, like a cold wind sweeping away the last remnants of trust. I couldn't reconcile the wife I once cherished with the manipulative person before me. My heart burned with rage and sorrow, and I could no longer restrain the emotional storm inside me. "A lapse," I yelled, my grief tumbling out. "You think your excuses can hide this endless betrayal?" At that moment, as if responding to each word she uttered, a hard resolve solidified within me. The love that once filled my life was consumed by searing anger. Without thinking, I struck her cheek once more. The moment seemed to drag into eternity. Emma gasped in pain, eyes filled with horror. I, consumed by raw emotion, couldn't stop myself. Each breath, each second felt like a twisted quest for justice, even as I torched the scraps of what we had. Her murmured pleas of remorse dissolved into the silence, leaving only the echo of shattered hope. When my hand finally dropped and the house went still, I stood over her, struggling to grasp the gravity of what I'd done. In her expression, I saw not only physical pain, but a deep despair that told me our bond was irreparably severed. Softly, Emma whispered, "David, I'm so sorry. I never imagined this could happen." But her words found no entry through the fortress of rage and betrayal I had built around my heart. I realized my actions had destroyed any lingering hope of reconciliation. In that moment, I knew our past, once filled with joyous memories, would remain forever buried. The home that once rang with love and laughter had become the stage for our final, irreversible departure. That tragic night marked the moment love and trust gave way to bitterness and destruction. I stood among the ruins, certain that the road we had chosen led only to an abyss of suffering, one with no victors and no solace. Although the court proceedings had ended, the real reckoning was just beginning. When the ensuing chaos at Northstar Industries revealed how deeply the scandal had cut, I felt a surge of determination to act publicly and decisively. I, David Anderson, had gathered every damning shred of evidence. Messages, photos, videos of Emma's betrayal. Now is the time to bring it all into the light. Late one evening, attorney Michael Carter and I finalized our plan in his office. We decided to hold a press conference right in the main headquarters of Northstar. This wasn't merely about my personal revenge for Emma's treachery. It was about exposing a broader system in which power, ambition, and greed overshadowed honesty and trust. Early the next morning, I arrived at the company lobby. Word had spread. The place was packed with journalists, co-workers, and executives, people whose lives and careers hung in the balance. I had made sure every media outlet was present, so when I stepped on stage, all eyes were on me. Ladies and gentlemen, I began in a firm voice. Today, I'm here to share the truth, a truth that's long been hidden behind a facade of corporate success and hollow promises. A tense hush settled. From my tablet, I displayed the evidence. Screenshots of Emma and Harrison plotting not only her promotion, but also clandestine meetings that could shift the entire corporate dynamic. Pictures of them together, sometimes accompanied by other influential employees, littered the screen. Each frame hammered home the corruption seeping through the firm's leadership. Pay attention, I continued, motioning to the screen. These aren't just private transgressions. They reflect a larger conspiracy undermining basic ethical standards in Northstar's policies. My wife's promotion wasn't about her qualifications. It was about a secret arrangement where personal benefits took precedence over honesty and fair competition. My words hung unvarnished in the silence. Journalists scribbled frantically, capturing each allegation. High-ranking staff members, now grasping how deep the betrayal ran, distanced themselves from the scandal. Slide after slide exposed how personal greed supplanted professional transparency. This is more than just revenge, I added gravely. It's a warning. Our corporation, and any institution, cannot remain functional when propped up by lies and corruption. A ripple of shock and outrage spread across the crowd. Some onlookers fled, unable to bear the raw truth of the evidence. The media erupted, and soon the scandal reached far beyond the walls of Northstar, confirming that the web of deceit was deeper than anyone imagined. Consequences soon followed. Harrison and his inner circle were dismissed, and a thorough internal investigation unearthed even more violations than we'd initially suspected. With every word I spoke and each piece of evidence presented, I felt a measure of my lost strength returning. The vengeance that had once been forged in sorrow became a transformative act of retribution, for me and for others harmed by the same murky system. My name, once synonymous with betrayal and grief, became a symbol of determination and unwavering pursuit of the truth. After the press conference, as I exited the venue, relief and residual bitterness coexisted within me. I knew further lawsuits and multiple legal battles lay ahead. But that day marked a decisive milestone in breaking the cycle of deception. Emma and Harrison would be held accountable, not only in court, but also in the glaring light of public scrutiny, where reputations are permanently judged. Even now, recalling that morning, I'm reminded that justice eventually finds those who gamble with other people's trust. In this fight, there are no real victors, only the exposed and their punishment. I, David Anderson, now stand at the threshold of a new chapter, convinced that truth always emerges and that revenge can be a liberation, both from pain and from the lies that gave it power. Following the bombshell press conference and the unfiltered disclosure of events, justice struck swiftly and without mercy. At North Star Industries, there was no choice but to respond decisively. The board, rattled by the scandal, took stern measures against everyone involved. In the wake of an internal audit, company investigators uncovered a trove of offenses that went far beyond private affairs: abuse of authority, unethical deals, and blatant policy violations. Peter Harrison, once highly esteemed, found himself removed from his role and then confronted with serious criminal charges for exploiting his position. His once pristine reputation was marred by ignominy and accountability. As for Emma, the promotion she'd secured through underhanded means was exposed as a sham. Evidence, both mine and that of the internal audit, showed that her personal advancement took priority over the company's best interests. Management moved swiftly to fire her and strip her of any standing she previously held. Word traveled quickly through every department, and colleagues who realized the extent of her betrayal cut ties, unwilling to jeopardize themselves. North Star's corporate culture, once held in decent regard, was forced to undergo a radical transformation. Leadership announced a total overhaul of internal guidelines and unveiled a dedicated committee to prevent future violations. Heightened regulations and rigorous oversight became the cornerstones of an attempt to restore trust. Employees, who had once remained silent, now rallied behind the reforms, recognizing that only through transparency and honesty could the company's integrity be rebuilt. Outside the firm, public sentiment was just as unforgiving. The media dug deep into the story, inflaming a scandal that refused to die. North Star Industries' reputation took a major hit, and investors demanded sweeping leadership changes. The evidence I had presented became a catalyst for reforms, not just within North Star itself, but across the local business sector. People began to see that no career is worth sacrificing morality and truth. For me, this period represented a kind of redemption through justice. Watching every offender face tangible consequences, both legal and social, offered a bittersweet sense of closure. Though the sting of betrayal would never vanish entirely, knowing that truth and accountability prevailed felt like the dawn of a new day. This story now stands as a cautionary tale for anyone who thinks they can undermine moral and legal principles for personal gain. A deceitful game built on betrayal and exploitation cannot endure unchallenged. Today, North Star Industries emerges under a renewed ethos, built around transparency and ethics, while my suffering has become the impetus for lasting transformation. Legal judgments, internal investigations, and a resolute outcry from the public underscored one reality: betrayal is intolerable. Those complicit paid a heavy price. The revived corporate culture, grounded in accountability, offers hope for a brighter future. Justice had spoken, and though I lost much in the process, I reclaimed my dignity and reaffirmed my conviction that the truth can, indeed, change even the darkest circumstances for the better. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a moment of the truth. That's the end of our story. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Your feedback means a lot to us.